Let's move on to some tools that are even more powerful than that. These are nice, but we got better things. So on the next sheet, the table. Table allows us to look at certain rows, that we can give it some criteria and look at just certain rows for us and stuff like that. We can do some other interesting things with it. Again, for this to work well, you want a nicely defined data region, so you want all your columns labeled, no blank rows, no blank columns in it, and things will go fine. So I'm just going to insert a blank between 1 and 2, a blank row between 1 and 2, so that I have that nice rectangular shape to my data region, so everything will work fine. And then again, all you have to do is pick a cell in that region, go to the Insert tab, and on the far left, or almost to the far left, there's an icon that says Table. Click on that, and it's going to turn that into a table, which is different than ordinary cells, and we can do some things with it, as you'll see in a couple minutes. Make sure you have My Table has headers, make sure that's checked. And then you should be able to just say OK. Now, it went ahead and formatted this and put a lot of color on there, and I actually think it's too dark of a color. So I'm just going to go up here where it says Table Styles on the right-hand side of the ribbon, and I'm going to just pick something more to my liking. You can leave it if you want. I just don't like that much color. So here we are. Well, what's this get this? Well, first of all, when I scroll down, the column headers stay on the screen. So that's nice. So it's kind of like a freeze top row. But if I were to click outside of that region, they go back to ordinary. If I click on it back in that region, they come back up. So I don't have to remember what those columns are. It also gives me the ability to sort by whatever I want, so I can just pick on date shipped here and tell it to sort from oldest to newest. So it's a little quicker if I want to sort on one column than go up through that routine. But the thing that really gets us, the thing that we really like about this, is that it allows us to filter and see just particular rows. Notice by each one of those column headers, there's that little downward pointing triangle. Click on the one by state. Okay. And we can filter on state. So we can, down here where it says select all, and then uncheck that, and then I can just say, okay, I want to look at New Hampshire, NH. So I can just say that, okay. And it's just showing me those rows. Notice on the left-hand side, the row numbers no longer go consecutively. There's some gaps in there from time to time. It's just hiding all the rows where the value in the state column is not NH. So I can look at this without having. Again, if this was 10,000 rows, think of all the time we've just saved by having this thing like this. We can pull this up. We can add additional filters to this. We can go over to date received. This is a different kind of data, so it'll have a different set of built-in filters. It actually understands months. So if I wanted just to look at things that came in from New Hampshire in May, I could just set it up like that. And then I would just say, okay. And again, it hides a bunch of rows for me. And if I want to look at, a different set, I can do. If I want to add more filters, I can do that sort of stuff. Notice up here now, next to state and received, instead of having that triangle, it has a funnel, and that's just Excel telling you that there's a filter active for that field, that column. So just so, because you might forget or something like that. If you want to take a filter off, you can just click there and just say select all, or you can just say clear filter, one of the two. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to clear all my filters. Okay, like that. Now we can do more than just pick things from a list. In alphanumerics, character data, there are text filters. So we can say greater than J. So it understands the alphabet, and so it'll pick anything that starts with L, M, K, or that sort of stuff, right? So you can do that sort of stuff. I don't know why you want to do it on state, but you could do that. You can, or begins with, ends with, all those sorts of things that we normally select on. If those were like different part numbers, and the parts, there's usually three or more sections to it, and one might be the product category, and another might be the color and all that sort of stuff. So you can actually pick different parts of that. For character or dates, because again, Excel really understands date stuff. You can pick this quarter, next week, last week, all those sorts of things for you, and it'll actually do that for you. So again, you don't have to write formulas and figure out which cell or rows you want to see. For numeric data, you can, I'm going to just pick one of these charges one here. You can do greater than, less than, above average, below average, top 10. A top 10 one's great. It'll show you like if I wanted to see the top 10, I could just do top 10. But it's more than just the top 10. I can show top whatever. Top 20 items. So for that particular column, it's going to show me the 20 biggest orders. So I can say okay. And so for this widget, whatever this thing is, Bravo, those are the 20 biggest orders that came in from that sample of data I got. And then I can play around with that. I can do more with that top 10. It's more than just the top 10, by the way. You can look at the bottom 10 or the bottom 25 or bottom whatever. And if you've got a lot of data, you can turn it into percentages. You can say, show me the top 10% or the bottom 5% or whatever you want. So even though it's called the top 10, you can do a lot more with it than that. So there's a lot of filters here that you can use to do stuff with. And I'm going to take that one off. You can sort by color, and then you can filter by color. This has to do with conditional formatting. If I were to go through and say, everything that came in, like let's make this, I'll do it. I'm going to just pick Bravo again, charges. So I'll just pick that whole thing. Oh, wait, I still got where's my filter? I got a filter on someplace. No? No. Okay. And then I'm going to go to conditional formatting here. And we'll just do greater than a certain, okay, something like that, right? Okay. So again, I'm not going to go back through conditional formatting here, but you set the colors up however you want. Then this guy, you can actually filter by color or sort by colors. You can do stuff with colors. So here's a place where conditional formatting really is helpful. All right. Come back up to the top. Filter. Now, in the new version, 2013, Mac people, you won't see this. The slicer, I don't think. Insert a slicer. So again, I'll just pick state here. I said insert slicer, then I went state. And it creates this little dialog box that floats around. It works the same way as to filter things, but I guess it's just a little bit quicker than going back up to the top each time. You can just play around with it. It's not terribly useful, but that's what it's for. You may want to do that because then over here you can turn that. Those are called filters, so you can turn those filter buttons off. If you've got people that are easily confused that are using your spreadsheets, you may want to set it up this way so that it's pretty obvious what you want to do if you want to filter on the state. Okay. You want the filter buttons back on, obviously you just check it and they come back. No big thing. Okay. The filter's still on there, so we'll clear that. Everything's back. All right, slicer. Totals row. We can add a row to the bottom of this that's quite useful. In the Design tab, under Table Tools up there, right in the middle, where it says Total Row, check that. And it puts a new row at the bottom. And it actually, here's the total for that column. Okay. If you click on the column for charge 2, you'll get a drop-down menu, and you can tell it what summary statistic you want for that column. So you can say sum there, 2, if you want. And we can do the same for charge 1. And that one's not big enough to show, so we're going to make the column a little bit wider. There we go. You can also turn on, like under state, we'll just count. Okay. All right. Now, here's where it becomes really useful, this in conjunction with filters. So if I were to go back to state, and let's just pick New Hampshire again, why not? Okay. So I've got, in this sample of data I have 38 orders from New Hampshire. And the total charges for part alpha were $3,700 and some dollars, and so on and so forth. Okay. So each time I change the filters, this is going to update those formulas, because the subtotal function works different from any other function in Excel. All functions except this one work on cells whether they're visible or not. Subtotal is the only function that works on just visible cells. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to take the filter off. I thought I was. Oops. Let's take it off here. Okay. And down here, I'm just going to say sum, open parentheses, and then I'm just going to highlight that column. Like thus, and then close parentheses, like thus, and I get the same number here. But if I start filtering this stuff, those two numbers are going to change. There's going to be a big difference between those two now. Because subtotal only works on visible cells. All other functions work on the cell whether you can see it or not. So if you hide a cell, it doesn't matter in most cases. So now I can compare what's filtered with the overall statistic. So I can do averages, and I can compare the average for New Hampshire with the overall average. I can do all sorts of stuff there. Okay? If you want more than one row with the subtotal function, then you have to write your own. So if I wanted, like, the sum and the average using the subtotal, well, you would just say equals subtotal, open parentheses. Then the first argument, the first thing you put in there is that little number telling it what statistic you want. So if I wanted average, that's 1. So I'd say 1, comma. And then I would highlight that whole row, whole column, and go close parentheses. And now I've got another subtotal. And so that's going to change depending on which rows I have visible. So you can do stuff with that. And then you can use the ordinary function. You can write the average function down here. And again, you can compare the filtered stuff with the whole to see if it's better or worse. All right. Okay. A couple of other things here. Notice my formula down here for sum. Doesn't look like the formula that we're used to seeing. This is a table. Formulas involving tables have to use what's called table notation. For example, now let me just show you out here. Equals, I'm going to add up those 3 charges for each invoice just so I have a total. So I'm going to say that charge plus this charge plus this charge. Enter. Okay. When you add an extra column to a table, it will do autofill for you. So you only have to write the formula up at the top, and it copies the formula down for you automatically. But again, it's done in table notation. So generally speaking, you're either going to want to write all your formulas before you turn it into a table, or if you can just pick the cells that you want, like I did in that formula there, that's fine, because I'm not going to, frankly, I don't remember how to do table notation, because I don't use it that often. So we can do this, and the last thing you can do is you can turn this back into ordinary cells, write your formulas, and turn it back into a table. To turn it into ordinary stuff, you go back to Table Tools, Design, and it says Convert to Range, and it'll convert it back to range for you. And then it puts it back into those cells, and it's just ordinary Excel again. And okay, subtotals, remove table, and that. All right. So, any questions about this guy? All right. So it's your turn. On P2, there's some data for you to work on. Again, you want to make sure that you have all your columns labeled before you do stuff here. Create the data range, and then, where is it here? Oh, this one here. Add a column that shows how long things have been open. Save that for last. That's hard. Do the other stuff and then come back and work on that one, okay? All right.